There we go.
There you go.
Okay. Let's see. Gallery view. There we go.
All right. And Rush is going to be joining us a little bit late. So is everybody ready to get started? Okay. All right. Well, I will call this meeting to order at 8:02 p.m. This is the July regular meeting of the Alcina Library District Board of Trustees. So welcome, everybody. We will begin, as always, with our roll call. Trustee Andrews.
Here.
Trustee Capel.
Here.
Trustee Cervantes has informed me that he'll be joining us a little bit later this evening, so we'll give notice when he arrives. Trustee Wilkerson.
Here.
Okay. Before we dive into business tonight, is there anything that anybody would like to move around or adjust on our agenda for this evening? Okay, if not, then I'd ask for a motion to approve and adopt the agenda.
I move we approve and adopt the agenda.
Okay, do I hear a second?
I'll go ahead and second.
All right, motion's been made and properly seconded. Any discussion? All right, and as always, we'll do all our votes as roll call votes. So Trustee Andrews.
Aye.
Trustee Capel.
Aye.
Trustee Wilkerson.
Aye.
And an aye vote from me. All right, at this time, I am not aware of any public comment on non-agenda items that's been received. In fact, I'm not aware of any public comment that's been received on any items. But as always, if you do have a public comment, you can follow the directions that are on the agenda. If you have a comment you'd like to call in, we're also, of course, live streaming on YouTube. And so, as always, we'll be flexible about when those comments come in. Brings us to item 3, our consent calendar. This month, our consent calendar contains one item, which are the minutes from the regular June meeting. That's our June 28th meeting. It appears on pages 3 through 9 of your agenda package. So I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So moved.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that one too, I guess.
Okay, you're on a streak. You're on a hot streak. All right, motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. Trustee Andrews.
Aye.
Trustee Capel.
Aye.
Trustee Wilkerson.
Aye.
And an aye vote from me. All right, we come now to the reports section of our meeting. So first up, we have our departmental updates. I will just draw your attention to the fact that we do have a presentation this evening, but it will occur a little bit later on in our agenda. Under new business, we'll hear about the operational plan mid-year update. That's item 8A. So we will come to that in a little bit. But for now, we have our departmental update reports. Those begin on page 10 of your board package. And as usual, we'll open up the floor for any questions or comments or observations from trustees. Anything anybody'd like to flag on these?
I don't want to flag anything, but I just wanted to say that I really appreciate all the pictures. It makes the package a little bit more fun to read. So keep that up. It's really good to see, visually see what's happening versus just reading about it. So I'm appreciative of that.
I second that enthusiastically. I totally agree. Especially with so much going on, it's really fun to see the photos of everything that's happening. I did have I guess that's that's in the director's report. I will wait. I got excited. I got ahead of myself. Anything anybody else? Obviously, there's a lot of really great stuff going on, from our summer programs to everything happening in our outdoor spaces to the fantastic community gatherings that we're starting to be able to hold again. So I think just a lot of really positive, and it's nice to see people gathering again. I don't know.
I love seeing the van out and about.
Yeah, the
You know, I
van.
went to the Farnsworth Park concert on Saturday and saw it parked out there. So it's really awesome to see that in use and increasing our visibility in the community.
Absolutely. Terry, sorry, go ahead. I thought.
Well, one thing that I noticed that's turning into, a long-term affair, comparatively speaking, is the rate at which we're having gardening and landscaping demonstrations over the Bob Lucas Library. So there's more work with Jonathan and his crew over there. And I ride my bike by there a lot and see that thing change almost day to day. So
Yeah,
that's terrific. That's a great focal spot to hit, if you ask me right now, because with the impending improvements that we have for everybody, to see that kind of activity going on really is nice to see. So thanks a lot for that.
absolutely. All right, anything else on departmental reports? Okay, if not, then we will move on to our support group reports. So first up, we have the Alcina Library Foundation, and I think Bridget's with us, and her report appears on page 21 of your board package.
Hi.
Hi.
Well, as you know from reading my report, we're really excited that we have hired a foundation manager. So we're really excited. She will start, it's Dawn DeGrius Smith. And she has a very extensive background in nonprofit management and consulting. So, and she considers herself an Excel queen. So we're golden. So she'll be working on our flip calls, our software database, as well as helping us get organized with Taste of Dina.
Wow.
So we're really excited about that. And I just lost my notes. I did want to say, the downside of it is that she has been a director on our foundation board. So we lost another director, but all in good cause, all for a good cause. But we did welcome two new directors this time, Jervy Turvalon and Emily Abbott. And they both bring extensive skills. So we're really excited to begin working with them and see where we go. And of course, our marketing committee is currently obsessively planning the Taste of Dina. We're excited to be doing it outdoors in the parking lot. We'll see how it goes. And now with the remasking of America, we're really glad that we did plan it for outdoors and hope we'll still be able to host it live outdoors. We will have our silent auction, however, online. So that's a good thing. Those who can't come can still bid on items. We also formed the Ad Hoc Bylaws Committee. We've been working always without term limits for our officers. We have term limits for directors now, but we failed to put in term limits for officers. And we have to do that to keep this organization vital and alive, so we're not having the same officers serve for 8-10 years.
Yeah.
And then the quarterly leadership meeting, Katie and Nikki and Sally and I thought it was really a good meeting and a lot of good energy. And all of us, I think, really focusing on ensuring that we're creating a positive message and that we're really going to focus on communicating well with each other as well as with the community going forward. That's it. Thank you.
Terrific. Thanks. Any questions for Bridget before we let her go? Go ahead, Terry.
Yeah, Bridget, I want to make sure I read this right. You've got two new directors, but you're down one. So your net gain is one director, is that right?
That's right.
Okay. So what's the total right now that you have?
We have 8
8, okay.
currently.
So I'm interested, you made the comment in here about a meet and greet for any future directors, people trying.
Right.
And I, for one, would appreciate as early as possible notice for that. I didn't.
There is no date set yet.
Okay.
I think I just read an email from the Board Affairs Committee that they're planning it for, I think, late August. And we're hoping to get the word out so that we can convene a larger group of people all at once and hear everyone's questions about serving on our board.
Okay, I've got one or two folks that might want to do that. So, let me know. I'd be happy to help out. And then I've asked this before, but I'll ask it again. What's sort of an ideal number of directors for you? You've got 8 now. Are you feeling better?
15 is the most we could have. I consider 11 to 13 is ideal.
Okay, so you're down 4 or 5 directors right now.
Yeah,
okay.
We're half what I would like it to be.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Thank you for asking.
Anything else? All right, thanks so much, Bridget.
Sure, always.
All right, next up, we've got our report from the Friends, and I believe we have Sally with us. Hi, Sally.
Hello. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Nice
Hello.
to see you all. Well, I'll just read. So, during the summer months of July and August, the Friends take a summer hiatus and have no scheduled board meetings. And then our next scheduled meeting is the first Saturday of the month, September 4th, if we're still meeting virtually, and I think we will be. If not, then that date might change back to the first Monday of the month, September 6th. This month has seen our emergence from the pandemic, and we are again accepting book donations from the public. And we have opened the bookstore and are holding our first book sale on Saturday, July the 31st. Come on down and visit us if you have the time. Since the library has been open and we've been able to get into the book room, the level of dedication from the book room people has taken off where it left off. One friend works daily to ensure that every book that comes through is determined for its value and placed accordingly. So either in the bookstore for either sold online or in the bookstore for a little more or saved for the book sale. This means we have a separate income stream from selling books online, then another income stream for better books in the bookstore, and then of course the book sales themselves, where we also encourage membership, our other income stream. So we feel we're really back on the horse. And the bookstore itself is looking marvelous, and we've been selling books quite well there. So that's really pleasing. All during the pandemic, staff at the library have reported a deluge of inquiries about when we will be able to take book donations again. And since we have allowed it, we've had a huge number of books arrive. Books have a strange magical property that makes it almost unthinkable to just throw them out. So people will always rather donate them. We would like to give our thanks to the library staff who help us and try and make our jobs easier and never make us feel that we're underfoot when sometimes we probably are. Victor helps us almost daily, I think, but everybody helps us there. Jonathan helps us so much. It's wonderful. They're wonderful people, and we are proud to work beside them. There you go.
Thank you so much, Sally. For the record, Trustee Cervantes has joined us. Does anybody have any questions for Sally on anything the Friends are up to? I'm excited to see this book sale on the 31st.
I was curious about that. What time is it? Is just like an all-day drop-in sort of as the library is open?
10 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Okay, we come now to our director's report, our district director's report. This begins on page 23 of your board package. So I will welcome our library director, Nikki Winslow. Hi, Nikki.
Hi, good evening. All right, I'm up so early tonight. It's weird. So good evening, trustees and members of the public that are watching and staff. Just dive right into my report. So we are so excited to welcome Finn Lee, who is our new library assistant in youth and family services. She joined us on July 7th. Or they joined us on July 7th. They were born and raised in the San Gabriel Valley, have worked in diverse communities in cities like LA, San Francisco, Oakland, and Portland. In addition to libraries, they've worked in museums, toolworks, and even Disneyland. So it's such an incredible addition to the team. Really excited about that. They are filling Amanda Toledo's vacancy, which Amanda left very big shoes, but I think Finn has already proven that she's going to be a really valuable member of the staff. So the YFS, Youth and Family Services, and all of the staff are really excited to have her on board. So unfortunately, we did have someone turn in their resignation from that team as well. Helen Kate, who started with us in September of 2017, and has been an active employee in both adult services and youth and family services, although I have to say is a natural with children. So that's definitely the way I see her path going. She did get her MLIS last year and was able to get employed full-time by the Glendale Unified School District. So I believe this is just her natural progression into that full-time work and, you know, really developing her career as a librarian. Her very positive attitude has been really important in what has been a really tough year and a half. So she's going to be greatly missed. And I just wanted to acknowledge her work with the board tonight. Her last day is this coming Saturday. In terms of hiring, there's a lot going on. We have the vacant administrative services manager position. That was supposed to close last Saturday or last Friday. I extended it out 3 weeks and changed up some of the language in the posting on government jobs to include more of an emphasis on finance, because I was finding that most of the applicants didn't really have a financial background, and that's really, I think, what we need most importantly in that position. So I may also work with Coffin Associates in the event that we absolutely can't recruit for that position, but I'm optimistic that by changing it the little bit that we did, we already got one applicant that was more finance focused, that we'll find someone hopefully. It's been extended to August the 13th. So if you know anyone that may be interested, please direct them to the website. We also have our marketing specialist position open. That closes this coming Friday. We do have several candidates that have applied. Again, as we get closer to the deadline, we'll assess whether or not we feel like there should be an extension, but that one we seem to get more people applying. So that's a positive thing. I'm also really excited to announce that today we posted a community partnership librarian position. As you're all aware, we had the marketing and community engagement manager, and we worked with Coffin Associates to, when you voted last month, to change it to a marketing specialist so that we can move more of the community engagement work to public services, which is everywhere I've ever worked technically where it falls. So we want to bring on this librarian to help us focus on not only outreach, but also that partnership building and developing more relationships in the community, which I know we've talked quite a bit about. And with Victor as their supervisor, I know we'll mentor them and gear that to expand our role in the community even more. So that position, like I said, posted today. It's on the website as well as government jobs. We'll spread the word in other places, and that closes on August 13th. In addition to that, with Helen Kate's vacancy, we'll also be hiring for the part-time youth and family services position as well. So lots of hiring going on right now. All right, let's see. So in the past month, we have updated our COVID prevention plan twice and continue to make adjustments to our plan and protocols as we receive these updates. As I'm sure you're all aware, the state came down with lifting the mask mandate, and then we were told, whoa, hold on, wait until Cal OSHA comes down, and they limited so that any unvaccinated staff were required to wear masks, so that changed the protocols. And then LA County came down with the mask mandate again. So we're just continuing to update, making sure we're following all the protocols and keeping everybody safe. I have to say, Another reason I love Altadena is people are just flexible and go with the flow. Like we have not had any issues with enforcing the mask mandate or any of the other protocols. So kudos to the staff and the residents that come in for abiding by the rules and making sure we're all staying safe. And I just feel like a public health official sometimes, honestly. So just real briefly on our statistics, I am excited to see that we're getting back to a little bit closer to normal. So we can actually be doing a little bit of comparative look at our statistics. As you know, this last year, it was like, we're closed, we're open, we're curbside, we're not. So I was really excited to see the growth in the physical collection checkout from May to June. It almost doubled. So clearly people are hearing that we're open. And I met one-on-one with most of the staff this past week, and one of our aides that does like our page work had said, like, I don't know what it is, but there's so much materials coming in right now. I don't know if that's the case. And if you look at the statistics, it definitely is. I'm also happy to share that passports are now taking appointments on Saturdays. So they're open Monday through Saturday from 9 to 4 by appointment only. When I spoke to Tony this morning, she said they are booked into the first or second week of September. So it's really, really a much needed service that people appreciate. And I think she said recently she had someone drive from Fresno to get their passport with them. I mean, like, people are so happy with the service they give. And I can attest to it. They helped me not renew, but my kids needed new passports. So anyway, they made the process very smooth. They're very knowledgeable. But warning, anyone who needs a passport, the standard rate or the standard amount of time right now is 18 weeks turnaround, which is like 6 weeks more than normal. And even expedited passports are taking 12. So plan ahead. Seriously. Yeah. Like they said, they have some people show up right now and think they're going to have their passports to travel by September, and that is definitely not the case. So if you have any international plans of travel in the future, I would get an appointment as soon as you can. So we did not have a CFD committee meeting this month. So I did include in my report an update on the bond issuance process. As all of you are aware, through the many, many RFPs we've done this year, we now have our bond issuance team assembled, which includes Urban Futures, who's acting as our municipal advisor, Best and Krieger as our bond counsel, Hilltop Securities as our bond underwriting services, and NBS offering our CFD administration, as well as the special tax consulting work we need to do the bond process. We had our kickoff meeting with those vendors and myself, and I think Diego, on July 12th. And from there, Doug, our municipal advisor, put together the drafted financing schedule that's in your packages on page 25. So next steps are tonight, we're bringing to you the reimbursement resolution, which we will cover when we get to that. Next steps are going to be drafting the legal documents as well as official statements that we're going to need and distributing those. At the board meeting in August, my plan is to have the bond issuance team there to do a presentation just to give an overview of this whole thing. We're going to have that group also do that with the CFD committee meeting in August. The town council actually reached out as well. So I'm hoping to set up a presentation on this whole thing with them in either their August or September meetings as well. So, and then looking ahead, we're also going to have a debt policy coming in for approval. We need to have that ahead of the bond issuance process. So that's scheduled to come to you guys in August. That will go through the CFD committee as well first. And then bringing all of those final documents and everything we need to the board in the end of September, which means the bond issuance would take place in October. So that's just a rough overview of what we're looking at, but wanted to give you guys an update on that. Doug Anderson from Urban Futures has been really amazing and very responsive. So if you ever have questions or want clarification on anything, please don't hesitate to reach out and I'll connect with him. He's been wonderful. So as you can see at the end of my report, there are so many events now outside. It's been really fun to get out into the community and connect with people. We, of course, were sad to see the Guajardos leave, the former owners of Grocery Outlet, but it was encouraging not only to see how many people showed up to like pour love all over them, but then that the new owners were there and really seemed to be community focused as well. So we'll continue to partner with Grocery Outlet moving into the future. I have to say, I love the summer concert series. So yeah, Jason, I was there last weekend with my husband as well. It was very groovy, that psychedelic summer. And going to the first concert, like if you haven't been, I highly recommend. It's a really cool venue. Everybody's having a good time. Like, yeah, super fun. And I also love to see the van all over the place too. So big thanks to Aaron Kimbrell. He's our new innovations librarian that has really owned the launch and making sure that we have the community out throughout. He's been scheduling the events and the pop-outs. So as well as doing the training for all of us potential drivers, which I've heard includes an actual like driving training of the van. So I haven't done it yet, but I will be soon. All right, and I also wanted to publicly congratulate Mark Mariscal on his Alcina Chamber of Commerce 2020 Person of the Year Award, which was presented to him at a dinner on July 16th. We had some staff there, Trustee Cervantes was there, as well as Bridget and Sally and friends from the Foundation and Friends. I just want to say we're so lucky to have such an amazing library advocate in him, as he talks about us everywhere he goes. And I can attest to that because anywhere I am with Mark, he talks about how great the library is. He also serves on both our Foundation and Friends boards and always seems to make time in his very busy volunteering schedule for us. So again, big congratulations on a well-deserved recognition in Mark, for sure. And yeah, I think I'll stop there.
Okay.
If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
All right, well, we'll open up the floor for questions. Anything that anybody would like to dive in on?
So a somewhat random question. So now that we have like all the teams in place, Nikki, I don't know if any of the other board members I got like a random email asking me about the tax lien thing.
Oh.
I don't know why I don't know if the other board members got the same thing, but should that just get forwarded to you or should that go to one of our team people?
No, you can send it to me. A lot of times they just have really like surface level questions, which I can easily answer. If they need more information, then I can refer them to NBS, but I'm trying to like only send to NBS what needs to go there.
Okay.
So yeah, any special tax lien questions, send my way.
Go ahead, Terry.
Nikki, I had just a question to help me understand. When I look at your page 25 with all of the steps and so on, I get all that stuff, but I was having trouble decoding the far right column. So I think I got everything but D. What's DC?
Oh, yeah, that got cut off. That's I have it. Oh, I think BC is bond counsel, ALD is staff. There's a legend. We'll get that out to you.
Okay.
I must have cut it off from the image. But yeah, like UW is
Underwriting.
Underwriting. Yeah. I'll get you the legend. Thank you, Terry.
Okay, thanks.
I didn't notice I cut that off.
Other questions?
Just curiosity, my apologies to my fellow members for being late. But I was kind of curious as to the RFP that we have out right now. I think it's for the administration. No, I'll strike that. It's for, I'm trying to remember which RFP is out, but they were due last week. I was curious as to how many proposals you received. And I'm sorry if you've already answered that question before.
No, good question. Yeah, that's being handled by the facilities committee. The deadline was Friday and we received 6 proposals that we're going to be scoring this week and then working with that team to hopefully select one and start the tier 3 seismic study soon.
That's right.
Yeah.
Obviously that's fair.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Do the next week. Thank you.
I had a question about our game plan with special presentations on like basically the whole bond and, you know, the structure and the process and all of that. And of course, it makes sense to present to the CFD committee separately, but it occurs to me that if we're going to ask everybody to come and present at the August board meeting, it might make sense just to, you know, structure the agenda a little bit differently and invite town council to come to the beginning of that rather than try to arrange a whole separate evening. Because I suspect that a lot of the questions that we have will be a lot of the questions that they have. And I think it might be productive to just have a little bit of a kind of town hall session there at the beginning, rather than try to duplicate that, on a different night for them. Because I'd like to have everybody in the same room if we're all thinking about things along the same lines.
Okay. Yeah, I've been emailing with Billy, so I'll see if that's a possibility to get.
See if that even works for them. If not, obviously we want to make sure that they get the information, but be nice to welcome them to the board meeting. Yeah,
sure.
And then I had a very unimportant question about statistics. Are passports doing photos? I just noticed that the numbers were 0 across the board. And is it just people don't need them, or?
No. Due to the safety protocols, they're not comfortable doing the photos yet.
Oh, because people would have to be masked.
Take their masks off, and they want to touch the camera and they want to look at things.
Right, got it. Okay.
Yeah, so it's been a good partnership because we've been sending them to Photography by Walt. So it's been like this, who's part of Read Local, Shop Local.
Very good.
Yeah.
Okay, other questions, comments, anything else on the director's report? Okay, if there's nothing else, then I think we can move on to the finance statements. Our financial statements begin on page 28 of your board package. And so, Nikki, I'll hand it back to you for that.
Yeah, and I thought I printed those, but did not. Let me see. I am not ready right now. Diego, did I thought I printed that.
Printed.
Oh, here we go. I have it up. Okay. I'm ready. So the financials are through May of 2021, that should say, which is at 91.6% of our budget year. So our net income is a negative $221,816.16, and our cash and cash equivalents are $4,073,176.46. So our total cash with the county right now is just over 3.5 million. And the total amount required to satisfy our district policy of 6 months or 50% of operating expenses. So we're well over that. And our total assets equal $5,886,857.12. So a couple of the revenue highlights to point out. We saw an overall addition of $29,337.02 to our property tax income. In addition to that, we received I believe 2 grants for a total of $17,770 for purchasing mini iPads for the Youth and Family Services programming and to administer the mapping team Altadena grant. The grants were provided by the California State Library and California Humanities respectively. So that's a really exciting amount of money in grants that, were not expected necessarily, that staff applied for and were able to get. And we received a total of $4,095 in passports revenue for the month of May. So some of our expenditure highlights were, we spent just over $5,000 on HVAC preventative maintenance and a service call. We also spent almost $40,000 on library materials as we were reaching the close of the fiscal year. So both in digital and print collections, and staff have been very busy processing those new materials to get them out. We also spent $3,200 on reading programming supplies and kits. So all of those kits that we passed out, I think around 600, most of that was spent on that. And then in addition, we spent almost $4,000 to prepare the mobile library unit for its June launch, including the purchase of a power generator, shelving, and the van wrapping services. And that's the reports. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, we'll open up the floor for questions. I know I have a bunch, but anybody like to jump in? Okay, I'll dive in. So I have a couple of questions. So given that we're at basically, 90% of the budget year, and we've done our mid-year budget adjustment. There were a couple of line items I just wanted to ask about. And some of them, I think they're probably pandemic related, but some of them I'm curious to know. So these are all in the expenses category. The first one is, hang on. The first one is 7210. So that's our building maintenance and repair. I'm on page 32 of the board package. So in the P&L. So line item 7210, building maintenance and repair, we've got 20,000 in the budget. We've spent about like 42% of that. Are we kind of holding back in the expectation that obviously a lot of this is going to get picked up in our construction work? Are we, because we reallocated a lot out of capital into other things at mid-year, right? But we still are quite underspent in that category.
Yeah, and I think Jonathan can speak to this, but I believe that that's exactly right. There were a lot of things that I think at mid-year, the accountants recommended that we keep a certain amount just in case things came up that we weren't anticipating.
Okay.
But I do know that Jonathan and I have been very conservative in spending much on those things right now, because I don't want to like purchase or fix something that is probably going to be very much touched during the building project. So
that's right. Okay, so we can think of that almost as like a contingency, like emergency, rather than like we're expecting to make those expenditures. That makes a lot more sense. All right, next up is, and most of this is just me not understanding what's in these budget line items. Next up is 6618, that's recruitment. Given the way we're kind of posting things and our use of paychecks, can you tell me a little bit about what goes into that expense category?
Again, I'm not Nicole, but I think the majority of it is spent on things like government jobs or other places that we've had to go out there and post for positions. So I know, like, I think I just spent another $700 or $800 to post the most recent position. So that'll show up in the June financials. But yeah, it's just fees to promote.
Yeah, got it.
Vacancies.
That was my assumption as well, but I just wanted to, I wasn't sure if that had been reallocated somewhere else under like payroll or HR or some kind, given that they have a sort of different arrangement. All right, next up is 6745 banking fees. I mean, I'm delighted that we're not paying banking fees. That is terrific. But I guess my question is, why were they budgeted so high? Were we paying a lot of banking fees before and now we're not? Or is it like time thing?
Yeah, I have to believe it had something to do with Chase versus Pac West. Okay. You know, we switched to Pacific West, I think like shortly after I got here. So I don't know if Nicole was just being conservative with that number, but I would assume we dropped it this year in this budget.
That was my assumption as well, but yeah, that makes sense. All right, 6730 mileage and parking. Nobody's going anywhere, so that's way underspent. That's fine. And then my last one. Okay, so our E-rate 7175, our E-rate, internet service E-rate number, we look like we're at about half of that spend. Is that something that we're expecting to spend before the end of the year, or is this where we're picking up money? I'm always a little bit confused about how E-rate works and when we get the money and when we don't get the money.
I think Christopher's on the call. Christopher, can you speak to that?
Yeah, there's quite a significant delay on when we get reimbursed on that. Usually happens into the next fiscal year.
Okay.
And there was a big bill that was in dispute for a couple months because we had canceled the 1 gigabit backbone and we had not been prorated on that. So I had to work with CSL and Khalifa to get that adjusted. So I'm not sure if that payment's in there or not, but that was part of it.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so that's all my questions on the P&L. I did have another separate question, but I feel like I've talked a lot, so I will toss it back to my colleagues and see if anybody has anything else they'd like to ask.
Oh, and I also wanted to point out with recruitment, Katie, it includes our expenditure on background checks too.
Oh,
That was
good to
another
know.
thing I didn't think
Okay,
of. So
good to
we're
know.
definitely gonna have to adjust that budget because we're actually spending more on volunteers, obviously, with background checks right now, but building that into the budget too.
That's good to know.
Mhm.
Any other questions? So I guess my separate question is sort of motivated by one of our business items we have later on, which is our reimbursement of expenditures prior to bond issuance. How are we planning to track and report out those expenses month over month as we go forward? Because obviously we've got consultants on board, people are getting paid. Are we wrapping that into our consultant budget, or do we have a separate financial statement that we'll be preparing going forward that sort of breaks out those line items?
So I've been in conversation with Ian, our accountant with iDaily. So when we produced the final budget that was approved, we had that third column for the CFD or the capital and donations grants account. So we're going to work together to have just like a different layout so you can see where all of those things are being charged to the budget, whether it's coming out of the general operating fund or the capital improvement / grants account. And our plan is to do that starting with this fiscal year. So the board will actually see that in September because, you know, we're always 2 months behind.
Right.
So we'll have that built into it. So it's clear, like if it's being paid for out of the capital money versus the general funds.
Okay.
That makes sense.
And okay, got it. So like basically there'll just be another column in our list that tells us where that money comes from.
Yeah, I think it's gonna look a lot different. I don't think these reports are the easiest things to read. And again, we'll want to create like a how to read the budget reports at the same time, but him and I have had conversations around making them just like easier to read and understand. And you'll be able to more clearly see where things are coming out of.
Okay. That sounds all very, very good. Given that we won't see that information until September, I wonder if perhaps next month we could just get sort of a rough and ready back of the envelope list of what our expenditures have been to date on what line items, just so we can kind of keep track of where we are as we're starting to ramp up with lots of different folks.
Yeah, and I'm gonna have to take a look at that because I do know that we've started incurring expenditures with Racklin, but I don't think most of the other consultants we've really had to pay yet. So there hasn't been much spent, but again, we'll identify what has and share that out with the board too.
Very good.
Okay.
Katie, as far as the budget committee, which is we're going to discuss momentarily, the next meeting is scheduled for August. And in conversations with Nikki, it didn't seem like there was much to really discuss other than the upcoming financial policies, which won't be ready by that point. So question back to you, do you think that this is worth having the budget committee meeting at that time, or is this something offline that we should do?
You know, it's a good question. I'm wondering if there might be some merit in having the budget committee think about reporting format more than any particular line item totals. You know what I mean? Because it does sound like we're changing some of the way we're looking at information and making sure it's going to kind of work apples to apples.
Right. And we discussed that as Nikki indicated when we were reviewing the budget, having that third column and it's obviously tracking the expenditures that would be eligible for reimbursement. So, you know, either we could do that either on a formal meeting or just kind of, we could just kick it around and see what makes sense and provide some options offline. I'm not sure that would last that long, but give some options working with our accountants as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
No, I think that's right. Okay. Other questions or comments on financials?
Yeah, just to kind of dive in on what you're all talking about, this whole conversation sort of begs the question about whether or not, and I think we're heading there, we want to have a much more complete set of books on just the construction itself, and be able to account for everything that's in there in some way when we look at the board packet as well. I mean, I remember seeing a sort of placeholder category that Nicole had put in a report or two that just said, expenses regarding, construction and so on. And it just seems like we're going to need a lot more than that as we go forward. I know we're all kind of saying the same thing, but I guess I'd like to endorse the idea that unless you get your arms around all the expenses that even now are starting up, you won't be able to apply them, in a meaningful way to that set of projects that we have going on. So, all the dialogue, Nikki, that you've had with Ian and the accountants, the things that you, Rushmore, and Katie are suggesting as well. As a member, I'd like to see a lot more expanse, a lot more detail on exactly what we're starting to spend, what the categories are, and our ability to add categories as needed too.
Yeah, I think you're right, Terry. And what we're discussing as far as the macro here, as far as the P&L and the balance sheets as of right now, obviously that'll roll up. The contractual expenditures, everything associated with construction, rehab, all the budget line items, they'll be comprehensive separate budget, and they'll figure, and then we have to discuss how we want to reflect that in the overall profit and loss statement. And those are the things, those are the options we need to make sure that we are all comfortable with as far as for full disclosure. But obviously there's going to be a tremendous number of line items just with the expenditures associated with the rehab work. You're right.
Yeah, and I will say too, sort of from the facilities committee side, we have sort of preliminary budgeting and preliminary line items, but I think as we get through some of the current cost estimating work that's going on, we'll be able to come back, I would say by the September meeting at the latest, with much more detailed line items, where we'll be able to break down, because this is anticipating the facilities committee report a little bit, but that's really what we've been doing is, working out the programming and then assigning some dollar values to all of those square footage requirements, and costing that out. So I think that as we get another month or two into this, we'll start to see a lot more detail, a lot more specificity, which I know all of us want.
And I would assume too that we'll work with Racklin to update, the full board. That's part of the scope of work that we brought them on board for.
That's right. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. Anything else on this? Or are we ready to move on? All right. So we've edged a little bit into some of our committee discussions, but is there anything else on the budget committee that you'd like to share with us? Much more.
Nothing at this point. Like I said, there was really nothing substantive to really discuss other than what we just had the discussion on, and we're anxious to see the financial policies that will be ready by the November meeting. And of course, at that point, we'll start to get a better sense as far as potential adjustments for a mid-year, probably the subsequent budget meeting. So we'll get a good picture at the next committee meeting.
Okay. Very good. CFD committee, Terry, anything you'd like to say on that? Oh, you're muted.
Our committee did not meet this month, but we will, as Nikki pointed out a little earlier, meet on the 11th of August. And at that point, we're going to get a series of presentations from our partners that we're working with that will be also discussed in the board meeting shortly after that. So we didn't have any action items basically for our committee. We've hired the 4 anchor positions that we needed, and they're underway now. So we're feeling that we're ahead of the pace. And as I looked at the number of meetings, we've actually done more meetings without, because we had a couple of special meetings without the July meeting than we had scheduled. So I'm feeling like we're getting the work done.
No question about that. All right. Very good. So facilities committee, we're now into our ad hoc committee reports. That report appears on page 42 of your board package. So Jason, I'll hand it to you.
All right. I'll summarize what's in the packet, and then Katie or Nikki, since I missed a couple of the meetings, if you guys want to fill in any details. But the committee continues to be focused on just getting us set up with all the foundational work that needs to happen so that once we get to the point of the bonds being issued and hiring an architecture firm, we've done all of the buildup we need to do. One of the big things I want to point out is we did distribute the community focus group description and application. I know that we're doing well with some of the established community groups that we want to make sure we have representation from, including Altadena Heritage. I just want to put another plug in for the at-large community member positions that are part of that, that we haven't gotten any applications for yet. So for the rest of the board members, feel free to spread the word on that. I know Cervante asked about this, but we did issue the seismic evaluation. We got, as Nikki pointed out, we got 6 proposals back on that, and the team is working on those evaluations. The hazmat study is due, the proposals are due the end of this week, so that's moving forward as well. And then we're continuing to look at offsite facility options, because as important as all of this work is, it's going to be equally important to be able to continue our community and public services while the work is ongoing. So that's pretty much what we've been focused on. Reviewing the kind of plans that ARG had put together, including the work that the staff has done since that time, as well as everything that we've learned during the pandemic to update those plans and have a foundation to work from once we get the community group together.
Okay, any questions on this?
Katie,
I'll
did
just-
you wanna-
I'll just add a couple of things. So firstly, I'll say that, the goal with the community focus group is to get the ball rolling. My suspicion is that even if there's not an outpouring of interest presently, as we start to have more for people to react to and more sort of specificity in terms of plans and designs and drawings, I think we'll have, probably more engagement and more interest. That's great. This is a fluid and organic process, and our goal is to loop people in at every stage as interest and as engagement is there. So certainly, those seats will remain open. We're excited to fill them, whether that's now or whether it's a little bit later in the process, but we are grateful to all of our partner organizations, historical and heritage and town council, and of course our support groups. And I hope I'm not forgetting anybody on the list, but if I am, forgive me, because everybody has been really good about stepping up. So part of the work that we'll be undertaking with the community focus group as well is some brainstorming around how to do better community engagement work, right? So the assembly of this group is not the be all and end all of our community engagement and outreach process. It's really just the first step in bringing a lot of partners and folks to the table who are going to have some really good input. So that process will continue. Other than that, I will say that I don't think it's letting the cat out of the bag to say that we had a fantastic series of programming meetings to look at ways in which we can be really creative with this space in both the main library and at Bob Lucas. And I think that the upshot of those is just some really interesting ideas about how to make great use of our existing space and also how to really leverage some of our outdoor space. And certainly if the past year has taught us anything, it is that having that outdoor space really do some heavy lifting and being functional is going to be critical. So I'm excited to share that with all of you as we get a little bit more specific. Okay, anything else on facilities? All right, redistricting committee. Camila, anything you'd like to share on this?
Nope, we are still in a holding pattern.
I think you might have froze, Katie.
I think I did freeze. Okay. Well, you guys all froze and then I froze. It was very exciting. It was a real emotional roller coaster that I just went through there. But sorry, Camila, did you have anything on redistricting you wanted to say? Okay. I know we're sort of in a holding pattern right
Yes, that's exactly what I said while we were all frozen.
now. Okay. Very good. Well, thank you. Then in that case, we come to our liaison reports, which begin on page 43 of your board package. So I will go first to Rushmore. I know the foundation reported earlier, but is there anything you'd like to do?
No, I mean, as to not to be redundant as to what was previously stated by Bridget, she covers it very thoroughly. But I would just say that they've really got their mojo going between the strong financial statements they've got right now. Some of the efforts they've been charging with have led to obviously grants. They've brought in 2 new directors and of course have their first staff person. So it seems to be all systems go as they start the planning of the Tasadena. So it's very exciting time for the foundation. I think that they're really on a roll here. So, but obviously in support of everything that we're trying to do. So, pretty much that's it at this point.
Okay, very good. Camila, anything you'd like to share for the Friends? I know they kind of did most of their updating already, so I think we're in good shape. But
Yep.
anything to add?
No,
Okay.
I don't have anything to add. Thank you so much, Sally, for your thorough report.
All right, then, Terry, I did note that your report begins on page 44 and is extensive, and maybe you'd like to tell us a little bit about it. I thought it was great.
There we go.
I like how much information you give every month.
Yeah, I like the
I feel like
fact
I
that
learned
I contact
something.
it every month. So, first of all, I'll say I was seeing some freeze going on as well. So if I'm starting to freeze, somebody raise a finger or something and let me know.
Will do.
And I'm sorry for all the different pages here, but it was a fascinating month for the California state budget. A lot of you may have seen through various links the individual expenditures that were outlined when Governor Newsom passed that bill on July the 12th. So what I did is I just took some language directly from the bill itself to share with everybody as it relates to libraries, just as take a look at it. So this whole budget process in California, which was a $263 billion budget, it's crazy how big it is. There's a $76 billion surplus that they're working with. And there's also 27 billion so far from the federal government that's being poured into state coffers for infrastructure and so on. So this went on for pages and pages, as you imagine, many dozens of pages for those of you that took a look at it. And I only excerpted the pages that sort of apply to us vis-a-vis library services. So we can, first of all, I'll say, and I know we're speaking for all of us, that Assembly Member Holden, Chris Holden, put in a request for us for $250,000 for infrastructure repair. And you'll see that in this report as a line item later on. So I'd like to certainly go on record for thanking him for that. I think it's been done a couple of times, but that was really a welcome chunk of money that's coming our way. And when you look at these pages, when you go directly to page number section 214 on the top of page 45. And what that is are some line items regarding support for the California State Library and Library Services Board. So there's millions of dollars being poured into that, none of which applies directly to libraries like ours, but there will be money available from those entities for grants and so on that we should keep an eye on. Then you go to section 215, which is on page 46 of the report. And this one's a little closer to home in that it talks about library development services. And there is money that's been put aside for matching funds for infrastructure grant programs. And I know that we have allocated to us $24 million in Measure Z. We'll be able to raise money for that. But as we look at appropriations like this and realize that some of the money could trickle down to us, every dollar that we might get out of something like this, looking at it, is another dollar that we don't have to charge the taxpayers of Alcina. So that's the way I looked at it when I highlighted all these things. Now, I'm a novice when it comes to looking at these budgets and really understanding them, but that looked to be pretty clear to me what the language says. So it would be great if we could, keep an eye on that money, and if there's any of that that's available to us. There's lots of itemization that occurred in page 47 of this. You'll see that. And then we go down to section 260, which is excerpted on page 48. And that is aid to local governments, which was sort of the call to action by the CSDA. There were all these special districts in California, thousands of them, that they weren't on the list to get money from the state on any of the activities that they do. And these are entities that are going to be responsible for spending a lot of the money that we get in the budget that's been handed to the state. So there was an appropriation for $100 million for special districts. And the way that special districts apply to that is going to be worked out over the next few weeks. And so by September the 1st, we should have some sort of model about what could happen. This money is meant to reimburse special districts for money or revenue they would have lost during the pandemic. And you really can't say that about us, except when it comes to passport services and things like that, where we may have lost a line item. Overall, we're doing pretty well with our tax collecting. In fact, our revenue from property taxes is going up this year, as you all may have noticed in the report. But still, there's $100 million there. Can some of that come our way and be applied toward the things that we want to do with the library? And then finally, we look at section 273, and you'll see that this goes on and on. I left a lot of the line items in here to show you the breadth of, I guess it's called pork in political terms, of gifts that are being given to all these different entities across the state. And when you finally get down to line, I'm almost there, 176, you'll see that $250,000 for the Altadena Library District. I don't know about you, but seeing that number in print in the bill was actually a bit of a thrill for me. We had to certainly remember Holden's assurances that it was there, but to see it listed in this document was really nice. And then of interest to us locally is that when you go down to line 181, there's $4 million that's been set aside for the city of Pasadena for the seismic work that they're going to have to start doing on their library. We never want to wish them ill at all, so that's really a great thing to see happening. Now, my apologies to those of you that already scoured this in detail and knew all these things. I probably overdid it with this presentation, but on the chance that somebody might not have scratched the surface too much, I went ahead and prepared all this. And there wasn't room, of course, for anything else. But suffice it to say, there's money to be had in the state budget that's earmarked kind of in our direction. And my mantra as we go forward with the building and the projects that we have for Measure Z is that if we can save the taxpayers in Altadena money on their property tax bills, we should be doing that. And if there are legitimate ways for us to apply for this money, I think we'd be well advised to do that. So sorry for my long-winded report, but there it is.
Not a, please. I think it's very much appreciated. Rush, did you have a question?
Yeah, actually, well, as a comment and then a question. Terry, thank you for this. This is actually very comprehensive. I don't mind this at all. But I too, when I read this, was really excited, specifically about 215, and we're going to be really well positioned because that grant requires a match, and of course we're because of Measure Z, we are well positioned to have a substantial match. So when we look at the seismic work, the tier 3 work that we're doing, and any of the other remediation needs to be done, plus when we get the cost estimates in, I think that we're going to be well positioned to apply. I guess it's going to be through the California State Library who's going to establish what that criteria is as to how to apply. Is that correct, Terry?
Yeah, it's you're right about the language regarding matching dollars, and we are even if we just use our general fund, we can match a lot of the dollars that would be available for that. And that was section 215. So yeah, it would say the California Library shall prioritize grants for life safety and other critical maintenance and infrastructure problems, which is exactly what we're doing now with seismic retrofit and all the other things. So there's that kind of money that could be hardscape for us, basically.
And depending on what the application process is that the California State Library produces, depending on how extensive it is, I would maybe recommend that we get a grant writer to help us prepare this, unless we feel the staff's, has ample time to put this together. But this is going to be highly competitive, and I think that obviously just by virtue of the resources we have at this moment in time, all the stars are aligned to really be able to get everything we need done. Both those that are must-haves potentially, but the nice-to-haves as well, so that we can get everything covered if we do in fact exceed the $24 million authorized amount. So this is really exciting.
Yeah, I really agree with that. The other piece that I think is a mark in our favor is the fact that this is equity focused infrastructure, and all of the work that we're trying to do at both of these facilities is inherently equity focused. And I think the more that we can center equity, certainly, of course, it's one of our core values and we talk about it, but really centering that in our discussions and in our planning, I think will not only be the right thing to do, but makes us more competitive for this kind of matching funding. And I think we could really, amplify what the taxpayers here have entrusted us with. So I think it's a tremendous opportunity. I'd love to know, and I don't know if you know this, Terry, but do you have any sense, or maybe Nikki, from California State Library, like when that opens up, if some of that money's already been earmarked, like what's kind of, because they're like, if there's anything left over, maybe then we'll look at like, do we know anything about what's kind of going on?
I attended a California State Library Directors Forum last week, I think. The weeks just like are flying by. And State Librarian Greg Lucas spoke about this funding that's going to be coming down. And he did emphasize several times that it's going to go to high poverty library districts.
Okay.
So I will definitely keep an eye on when they open it up for these grant applications. And it was life and safety. That was another thing, but he did continue to emphasize high poverty areas. So again, I'll keep an eye out as to when we could potentially apply. And I agree with Rushmore. If the opportunity does present itself, we'll probably want to look into bringing on a grant writer for something like this.
Yeah. That's really good to know. Thank you. Well, thank you, Terry. This is a ton of work, and I have to say, I really appreciate all the context as well. I think it makes it really valuable, and I appreciate knowing not just sort of what impacts us, but kind of what's going on and getting the bigger picture about, funding going for parks and museums and libraries and in other jurisdictions. I think that's really helpful to put some of our numbers in context as well. Okay, so we come now to our trustee reports. Does anybody have a trustee report they'd like to make? I am going to just use the absolute power here that I have by being unmuted for a minute, and it's just nonstop. No, I wanted to draw everybody's attention to something that actually came out today. So the LA Times did a feature on a recent undertaking that I know the library was part of, and many of our partners here in Alcina really spearheaded, and that's the commemoration of Ellen Garrison Clark, who is a tremendous civil rights figure and campaigner who's buried in Mountain View. So over the course of the past year, Altadena Historical, along with other organizations, including the Altadena Library, have worked to raise money and to raise the profile of Ellen Garrison Clark, who was an abolitionist, an educator, and a really fascinating woman. And today, the LA Times released a video profile of the project. I'm under advisement that they are in the process of putting together a front page story on it as well. Many of our friends, Dr. Thomas, Veronica Jones, Eric Malfinger, like many of our partners are featured. And if you haven't seen it yet, I encourage you to check it out. It's amazing. The plaque at Mountain View is beautiful. The ceremony on Juneteenth was incredible. So just really want to express my appreciation and admiration for all the work that the coalition behind this project has done for somebody who's really such an important figure that I think, we're really privileged, of course, to have here in Altadena and the opportunity to learn more about her and her work. So if you haven't seen it yet, check it out. Did we lose Trustee Cervantes? What happened? Oh dear. Oh, he's back. Okay. Very good. So we come now to new business. So first up, we have an informational item, and that is a review of our 2021 operational plan mid-year update. As you guys will recall, the operational plan works on the calendar year, even though our finances work on the fiscal year. So it's mid-year for this. And with that, all of this begins on page 57 of your package. I will hand it over to Victor.
Thank you, Katie. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Yeah, so since our current operational plan is 28 pages long, I figured I would just share some of the highlights with you all. I've divided it up by department, so we'll go through some of the key accomplishments for each department, and also some things that they're currently working on or perhaps reconsidering. And then you can, if you have any questions, you can ask them of me, and we also have all of our department heads here as well to answer any more specific questions as they come in. So starting out with administrative services and facilities, one of our key accomplishments there is that we are now in our commitment to ongoing staff training, completing the Project Ready modules, which is a online curriculum for library staff and school library staff originally to better support the needs of BIPOC youth. But this is now a curriculum that all of our library staff are a part of and taking part of, and we have our admin team completing the curriculum one module ahead of the main staff, so that we're able to have these conversations with our teams. We are also collaborating with a local Boy Scout troop in building 6 little free libraries and installing them across Altadena. Our original goal was to produce 3 of these, but we've been able to strike up this wonderful partnership with the Scouts, and we're moving on full steam, and we are planning to install 2 of them at the local parks, and then we have found homes for most of these other ones as well already. And we're looking at, how well they are distributed already, the little free libraries across town, in making the decisions about adding new ones. We're hitting up the areas that are not so well represented on that map. We also went through 5 RFP processes this year in coordination with the facilities and CFD committees, and yours truly, the Library Board of Trustees, to hire all the consultants. Big accomplishment there. In progress, we're still working on updating the financial policies, and obviously we've had some staff turnover that have contributed to that taking a little bit longer than we had expected. And of course, all of the ongoing work related to the 2 building renovations is very much in progress as well. For adult services, we led the planning and the execution of all the community dinners in June, Inspire Harmony, a big undertaking and truly a team effort across the library, but with a heavy emphasis on adult services. We were awarded the LA Compost grant for a compost to be installed at Bob Lucas Library, and we're still waiting on a final installation date on that, but that's a very it's a very interesting project. It's not a very common project to have a public compost bin like this at a public library. So we're very excited about this, and it works really well with what's already being done at the Bob Lucas Library. For Read Local, Shop Local, our goal was to have 10 active business partnerships by June 1st, and we have 23 by June 30th. We have now been able to score a few more, so we're up to 25. The weeding of the adult collections was also completed, but two months ahead of schedule. That was the benefit of us being able to make the most of the time while some of our staff worked from home and the libraries were closed. In progress, our diversity audit project is underway, but it's taking a little bit longer to get started than I think I initially anticipated. We've now trained the staff and we're ready to, with the new fiscal year here, take a what's called an approach that starts on the acquisition side. So we're going to be reviewing each item as we purchase it based on the diversity audit form that we've developed. But you know, it takes a little bit of time to get something like this started, and we want to do it in a mindful way that respects also the work time of everyone involved as well. So we want to make sure that we create buy-in around that. We are looking at a full revision and continuous updates to the information desk manual. That's something that we also started while we were working from home, and something that's kind of being picked back up again now. We're also working on building a community assets database, and that's something that we haven't done before, nor is it something that most libraries have ever, very few libraries have ever attempted. So it's like kind of you're building something that you don't know exactly what it's going to look like. So it's taken a little bit longer time than we had anticipated, but we're on a good track now, and I'm working with our innovations librarian Aaron on this currently, and we hope to have something to share with the Library Board of Trustees later this year on that. For IT and technical services, I don't know if Christopher wants to speak more about this, but basically it's working on providing software to the public school system in a kind of a resource sharing manner. They currently have an MOU under review with Youth and Family Services, so there's some good progress being made there. Christopher's also identified the drone that he would like to use for his drone delivery of materials. We're still waiting for the funding for that drone though, so he's actively pursuing some grant opportunities. So hopefully some more exciting news to come on that soon. And in the in progress section and reconsidering section, we are not able to do any randomized surveys by census tract because we don't have the volunteer power to do so currently, but we are in the process of welcoming volunteers back. So hopefully that's something that we can see on the horizon fairly soon. Christopher's temporarily abandoned the idea of 5G as a public utility. He has found that that is not feasible at this time. And also installing the steel-cased grid power for the electrical infrastructure inside the buildings is also something that's on hold until we complete the building projects, because it doesn't make sense to install that stuff and then rip it out for a renovation. So that makes sense. For marketing and community engagement, one of the main things is that we were able to talk to over around 260 community members from January through June 30th, and I think that's it's a very respectable accomplishment considering that we haven't really been around people very much. We've still been able to talk to them in various forms online, and then most recently through our Inspire Harmony events. And we have recently streamlined and expanded the adult volunteer onboarding and evaluation process. And we're now capturing volunteer data in a different way than we were prior. We also acquired the Curiosity Connection in May. The full modifications to the van were completed, and not to mention the fact that it's now out in the community pretty much all the time. So that's a huge accomplishment. And for the in progress reconsidering section for marketing, the recent turnover obviously is affecting us in some ways here. And we have decided to put the podcast project on hiatus for now. It's not going to be published in August, and we're going to kind of reassess the focus of that effort and then get back to you on that. We've also joined the communication committee of the town council. I'm a member representing the library there. And our plan there is to, hopefully the Altadena Connections has already been recognized as a very viable way to communicate in Altadena, and it's been acknowledged as such by the town council as well. We're hoping that long term that we can use the Altadena Connections as more of a, not a specific library specific tool, but it is like the community, the full community tool that it was envisioned as. And so having more people on board with that and having it be more of a shared effort, I think will be the path going forward. Our Library of Experts concept, we do not have any real progress on that. I think the same ideas are coming out in other projects a little bit, but we don't have a real update on that. And that's also due to staff turnover largely. For Youth and Family Services, they have created 30 themed picture book kits, and those are circulating very well. They're very popular, and they're actually some of the more popular items in our, when the Curiosity Connection goes out and people are circulating and checking items out, these kits are really popular. Bob Lucas staff established a deposit library location at Lucy's Place, which is a diner on the west side. So people can come to the diner and pick up books and replace them on the honor system and bring them back to the diner or keep them. So that's another community focus effort that is up and going again. We have built great partnerships with the local foster homes. We've reported out on that in the past, and we were actually able to include 5 acres very successfully in the summer reading program for teens, which was really exciting to me because that was really something that I wanted us to do more work in that area, and the fact that we were able to get that up and running so quickly was really, really encouraging. We have also added several items to the Library of Things for children, instrument exploration, little rhythm kits there, spoon puppet kits, and Nintendo Switch, and we also have, of course, the Ghost Hunter kits in circulation for teens. Our teen librarian the other day said that she has to replace the dowsing rods in the Ghost Hunter kit, and I thought to myself that I never thought that would come up in a library staff meeting, but it did. And finally, in progress for Youth and Family Services, we're still working on creating relationships with the child care facilities in Altadena. Obviously, that's somewhat impeded by what's going on in the world and the lack of access in different ways, but we're still making progress in that area. And the teen librarian has made a partnership with a librarian at Muir High School, and we're going to be seeing a more regular visit schedule, obviously, once the school year starts there. And the Youth and Family Services Department are also continuing to work on completing their diversity audit, which is something that they've been working on for some time, and it's giving us in adult services more realistic expectations about the type of commitment that this is and how long it takes. But we're all learning a lot, and that's my update. And if you have any questions, I will be happy to answer those.
Thank you so much. Obviously, a ton of work and a ton of flexibility in a very challenging environment where conditions keep changing. So I know all of us say this every month, but it's because it's true every month, which is that we're always very impressed by the ability of the staff to be adaptable, be creative, and really come up with interesting and innovative and community-focused ideas. I know I've got a couple questions, but I'd like to open the floor up for questions for either Victor or any of the other department heads on anything in the operational plan review. Go ahead, Terry, please.
And this is really a micro thing, and I'm not even sure I should ask it right now, but you had mentioned the volunteer onboarding, Victor, and I remember that all of us are supposed to be doing something in that regard, and I guess I would appreciate an email for any truancy that I might be exhibiting with some of the volunteer onboarding. I think I was supposed to do something, so if you could send that, I certainly would appreciate it. But I wanted to, that's my question, but I wanted to comment that this is really, really terrific stuff, and I'm really happy to see all the focus and seeing some numbers that are really moving in the right direction for all of us too.
Terry, to answer your question, yes, the Board of Trustees should be sending us a volunteer application so that we have that on file and we can do background checks just as we would with any other volunteer for the Alcina libraries. But yes, I will send you an email tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. It hit me right during the presentation, so.
Yeah, no worries.
I've got a question about some of the stuff under the marketing community engagement heading. So obviously with staff turnover, completely makes sense that we need to reassess and kind of reallocate. I guess my question is more sort of a forward-looking one, which is, do you imagine most of those initiatives now shifting over to the community partnerships librarians sphere of work and influence, or do you think it makes sense to kind of re-examine some of those initiatives, or what's your kind of sense of direction?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both of those things. I think it's too soon to say, we're definitely moving away from that. I think, and I think it's too soon to say exactly how the work is going to be dispersed. But I think, for instance, like Library of Experts, I think that concept is going to continue to live on, and it might be in that same format, or it might just pronounce itself a little bit differently, or express itself a little bit differently, so that it is. I think I'm thinking a lot about like scale, and like bringing a large initiative forth at this time is not realistic. I think with what we're at, I think we need to. We're still in kind of a young team in a lot of ways, I think, and I think we need to build this team with the new people that are going to be joining us a little bit before we launch into something like that, because I would want that to be a really successful project. But I think we're just going to find other ways to approach it, and looking at like, okay, so we still have a need for people to run Zoom, create like Zoom programming in Alcina, and for that skill set to be shared more widely. Well, if we already identified some people in the community that can help us with that, that could be a way to beta test Library of Experts without like bringing it to full fruition quite yet. And that way we can learn a little bit more about the issues surrounding it as well before we bring it on a bigger scale.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm glad to hear you say it, because I think all of these, I mean, Library of Experts is one example, but there were a number of other initiatives, especially in that section, that sort of arose out of conversations with members of the community or needs that people had expressed. And I think that you're exactly right when you say that those were one iteration of a possible way to meet those needs, but not necessarily the only one, and not necessarily one that makes sense for where we are right now. So I'm excited to see kind of what that looks like, given everything we've learned in the past year and a half, and where we're headed going forward. So I think I'm particularly interested in seeing what the next iteration of our operational plan looks like, based on, who's going to be in some of those roles and how we're meeting some of those needs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other questions for Victor or any of other department heads? I mean, I'll just say to all of the heads of the departments, but also certainly to all of the staff that they supervise, just our very sincere thanks for all of your incredible work, and also for such timely and informative reporting. One of the really fun parts of our job is to watch all the incredible work that you all are doing, and you make it really easy for us when you give us this level of detail, and having it organized around our core values and seeing all the ways in which we're continuing. And I say we, and I mean you guys are continuing to live up to those values and embody them is so inspiring. So thank you so much. And thank you, Victor, for a terrific presentation. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, if there's nothing else on the mid-year plan or on the operational plan, then I think we come now to some of our action items. So we've got a little bit of policy work, a couple of resolutions. So let's get right into it. On page, excuse me, 89 of your board package is a review and approval of the updated code of conduct. So as the staff report explains, we've got that that code of conduct reframed a little bit. Victor, is there anything you'd like to highlight on this, or anything you'd like to share with us about this?
No, just to summarize what the staff report says in terms of one important thing that I think is really key when you're writing policy is that you want to have an element of trust in there. You want to lead with the things that you're recommending rather than the things that you're prohibiting. Like usually when you talk to people in a positive way, you get better results. So that's why we're trying to rephrase this and utilizing the code of conduct to communicate what we expect from people instead of the things that we are prohibiting. And then we've also clarified the language throughout, and also added some references to the policies that were not in existence when we first wrote this version of the code of conduct, that they now are. So it's kind of you can see kind of the references to the work that we've done so far this year and the other policies that are referenced there. But yeah, other than that, there's no major changes to them.
Okay, any questions or discussion on this? All right, if not, then I'd like to ask for a motion. Oh, sorry, go ahead, please, Terry. Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to drill down on a couple of things. I guess I'm interested in if you are having behavioral events at the library that happen on a regular basis, and what they might be, or is it 99.9% of the time we've got a good crowd that's coming? I know you can't make any judgments right now because you've got the pandemic that kept everything quiet for a long time. But are there incidents that come up from time to time that seem threatening to the staff or anything like that?
So I'm not probably the best person to answer this, but I have talked to a lot of my colleagues since I haven't been here for very long, and I've only experienced the pandemic version of this library. I haven't seen it in full action, but from what I'm hearing, this library has not had severe issues in the past. There's been incidents every once in a while when someone is disruptive and agitated in different ways, but compared to many other libraries that I've worked for, this Altadena libraries have not had severe issues.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did see
I should say like systemic issues, because some libraries where I worked, I spent maybe 2 hours a day like writing incident reports and dealing with patron issues. But here we haven't had those issues historically.
Yeah, I would completely agree with Victor. This is Nikki. Yeah, we're pretty spoiled up on the hill.
Okay. And that might be part of it too. We're a little isolated from mainstream Los Angeles. But I did see on number 7, appropriate clothing. Oh no, I'm sorry, that's not the one. It's the one where you can use water or facilities for cleaning up and washing clothes and things like that, which got me to thinking whether or not we have policies in place, and I should know this, I guess, that with protocols or a series of steps that would be taken at the library to help homeless people find the right services and things like that. Is that something that gets addressed elsewhere, or something that's even worth talking about? I don't know if that's an issue at all with our library, but it's getting to be more of an issue everywhere else. So I thought I'd just throw the question out.
Yeah, and that's something that we have been working on too. We definitely, as we are, sensitive to the various needs of our community. One of the things that we did during the pandemic, or when we were working from home, I should say, was to deepen our relationships with Union Station, for instance, in their homeless services, so that we are up to date on what is offered in the community and how we can make correct referrals for people. So we definitely want to make sure that we are providing, even though we can't provide all the services directly, we can provide referrals to people so that they are able to find help.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, any other questions on code of conduct? Okay, then at this time I'd ask for a motion to approve the updated code of conduct.
So moved.
Okay, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All right, motion's been made and properly seconded. Any further discussion or debate on this item? Hearing none, we'll take a roll call vote. Trustee Andrews.
Aye.
Trustee Capel.
Aye.
Trustee Cervantes.
Aye.
Trustee Wilkerson.
Aye.
And an aye vote from me. All right, very good. Thank you so much, Director. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Okay, next up is item 8C. This is resolution 2020 this is Community Facilities District Resolution 2020-01, declaration of intent to use tax exempt bonds for reimbursement of expenditures prior to bond issuance. Basically, this is a resolution that says if we spend money before the bonds are sold, we can pay ourselves back later. But Nikki, would you like to speak to this item a little bit?
Sure. Nora did offer to be here, so I'm hoping I can answer any questions about this. I did speak to her today just to get a little bit more caught up on why we're filing this resolution. And it's if in case you have any type of hard costs, soft costs really aren't included in this reimbursement resolution. And right now, pretty much most of what has been spent that will need to be reimbursed for is consultant work, which is considered a soft cost. But the tax attorney at Best and Krieger said you're better off having this resolution in place in the event that there's any costs that you incur. And it would be up to 60 days prior to when we pass this resolution tonight, if the board does approve it, as well as any costs after this resolution was filed. So again, it's really just like a precautionary thing to do just in case there are any expenses we occur before the bond issuance takes place in October. And I'm happy to try to answer any other questions, but that's my best understanding of it.
So Nikki, this is just to cover, like as an example, for the current budget, I know there was already expenditures covered. This is just basically codifying that, even though it may have been codified in the budget, this is more just being done so in a resolution versus as a budgetary action.
Well, my understanding is if we had more hard costs, meaning like we were actually spending money on the construction or those type of hard cost related things before you pass the bond, you wouldn't be able to reimburse yourself unless you had this filed. So again, like being that we haven't even moved into the construction phase, we have not incurred any of those, but just to be on the safe side, let's say there's a delay in the bond issuance or something were to happen.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to hold anything up. We wouldn't, pending approval of this resolution. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Sorry, this is a procedural, like very nitpicky question. Is the number on this resolution 2021-01 or 2021-03? Because in the package it's 3 and the resolution is titled 3, but the agenda says 1.
Diego, can you speak to that?
Yes, it should be 03. The agenda is wrong. That was my mistake.
Okay, no problem. I just want to make sure that when we get to the actual motion, we vote on the correct resolution number.
Yeah, the recommendation is correct. So we'll fix the other one on the agenda.
Actually, I just noticed. No, the title says 01 because it's referencing the CFD. So the resolution that you're actually passing is 2021-03, but the title on the resolution, if you read, we're referencing that original resolution. So it's the edit is actually 2020-01.
Right, so Community Facilities District number 2020-01, and the resolution is 2021-03, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. Well, as they say, we can fix it in post. Any other questions or discussion on this resolution? It's pretty straight ahead. Okay. Then I would ask for a motion to approve resolution number 2021-03 in order that we might reimburse the library district with the proceeds from the CFD 2020-01 bonds for any hard costs incurred.
I'll move.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion on this item? All right, we'll take a roll call vote. Trustee Andrews.
Aye.
Trustee Capel.
Aye.
Trustee Cervantes.
Aye.
Trustee Wilkerson.
Aye.
And an aye vote from me. All right, very good. And we'll set up a time for Jason and myself to come in and sign that. So we are all good to go. Okay, next up, item 8D, a review and approval of ALD's Project Emergency Connectivity Fund Technology Purchase. This begins on page 96 of your board package. Nikki, do we have you or do we have Christopher to speak to this item?
Christopher, did you want to speak to it? And I can add anything additional.
Sure. This is a request to make purchases for hotspots and laptops, for laptops that are end of life, and to expand to get hotspots that are more powerful for the district ahead of a grant approval. We haven't received like the actual grant money or been approved for it, but it's looking so good that other libraries are using our submission for the grant as a template. So I'd like to get that off the ground right now.
Okay, so I'll also speak to it. So not only are these items that we are needing to replace our end-of-life computers, as well as going from the 4G to the 5G hotspots, which are just much quicker. You'll be happy to know, Camila. But with this emergency connectivity fund, they will supplement up to $400 per laptop. And what was it per hotspot, Christopher? Was it 200, 250?
It's $250, and they will pay for the full service fees.
Yeah. So long story short, we're being able to get even more equipment than we had originally budgeted for. We have not been approved. We won't know about the approval till September or October, but we do need to replace this equipment now. So we're basically asking for the board to approve this expenditure, knowing that we're going to be getting reimbursed almost all of it to cover not only 40 new laptops, 16 new 5G hotspots, as well as a full year of service of those hotspots. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Yeah, I know it's a little confusing.
I have a question, sorry.
Sure.
It's pretty straightforward, actually. I had a couple questions. The likelihood that the grant is gonna get approved is high, like
Very high.
Okay. And then the 40 laptops, are those for the staff, the library staff, or for those are for people to borrow?
They're all for public use.
Okay. And then the hotspots, yes, I am excited about that because it sometimes doesn't work for me up at the Altadena Garden where I like to work. So that would be awesome. Yeah, I think that was my main question, is that you both seem pretty confident that the grant is going to get approved, so it would pay us or pay the library district back for those dollars.
Yep, definitely. And I think, Christopher, you were the first to apply, weren't you? I believe.
Yeah, we're pretty much at the front of the line, which is why a lot of the other libraries that I just got this request today, if we agree to share our narrative of need, our explanation of need to other libraries so that they can riff off that.
Terry, go ahead.
I had a question about the nature of this. I hope you can answer that. And that is, is this sort of a pop-up fund that comes from the Federal Communications, the FCC, or that they have available every year? I'm trying to figure out if it's sort of a short-lived program or one that goes on for a while.
It's a pop-up fund due to COVID.
And a follow-up question to you, Christopher, is how did you find out about it? Did you read about this somewhere, or how did that come to you?
So this one is strongly tied with USAC, which is our main, it's the main regulator for the E-rate funding that we get. And so the E-rate consultant that we use brings like these sort of grants to our attention. And so we're working with the E-rate consultant on this to do all the filings and keep everything in compliance.
That's a terrific find, if you ask me, so congratulations on getting that.
I have to say, Christopher's always looking for grants. So.
And so the recommendation, so it's going to be 45,000 up front, but then it looks like the grant request, when it's approved, it's going to be less than that, right? So we're still going to pay some money up front.
Right. So yeah, we'll be spending, we would only expend the $15,435.87 if we get that full reimbursement from the grant that we're anticipating.
Okay.
So yeah,
that's pretty awesome.
They're getting over 25,000 from the grant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would echo what Terry said, and it's awesome that you are finding these grants, Grant Hunter.
We'll have to add that to his title.
Yes,
Okay.
to his job duties.
I mean, ditto all of that, and I'll just say, for me personally, I mean, I would support allocating all this money even if we weren't getting the grant. I think just, you know, some of it's end of life stuff, but I mean, clearly there's an ever increasing need in the community that the library is playing a huge role in helping fill that need. So I'm all for it.
On that, I had a curious question also to echo what Jason is saying. So I know I borrow the hotspot quite often. Is it a hot ticket in terms of the library of things?
Yeah. So
Okay.
this hotspot, I can't say for certain there's no other library lending out 5G hotspots, but it very well might be the case that we'd be the only ones. Most other libraries would be lending out the 4G LTE ones, which, you know, if you get in a good signal, you're going to get 4 megabits to 12 megabits per second, which is, you know, good for those. We tested the model that we've been getting over the grocery outlet event and saw downloads of 121 megabits per second. So it's like,
That's really good.
Yeah.
it's crazy. Yeah.
And also to add to that, Christopher, I believe every hotspot's checked out right now, right? So they're definitely a very popular item in the library of things.
That's great. And I know that that was also one of the things we had built into our plan with the Curiosity Connection rolling around, is that we would have the ability to deliver more technology to folks.
Well, and you know, I'll actually illustrate another point in that last week our internet went down. I think the whole communities did at some point, right? Or something. Both of our libraries were down, and we used the 5G hotspot from the van, and we could have up to 30 people using it in the library. So, I mean, they are just very, very robust hotspots. So, and the fact that we're getting them almost 100% paid for is even better, you know?
Yeah, very cool. Okay, so then if there's no more discussion on this, I would ask for a motion to approve an expenditure up to, so not to exceed, $45,000 for Project ECF to replace end-of-life equipment.
So moved.
Okay. Do I hear a second? Thank you very much. All right, motion's made and seconded. Any further debate, discussion, questions on this item? All right, let's take a vote. Trustee Andrews.
Aye.
Trustee Capel.
Aye.
Trustee Cervantes.
Aye.
Trustee Wilkerson.
Aye.
And an aye vote from me. This is very awesome. All right. Next up, we've got 8E. This is an approval of the salary schedule. It appears on page 98 of your board package. And Nikki, would you remind me why? Because of the COLA, right?
So last month, the board voted to approve the updated IT and technical services manager job description, as well as the new marketing specialist. So we had to change the titles, or we added marketing specialist at the librarian level and then changed IT and technical services manager title. So it's just those two adjustments that we needed to make and have the board approve.
Got it. Cool. Thank you. Any questions on this? All right, pretty straight ahead. I'd ask for a motion to approve the salary schedule.
I'll move.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Oh, you beat.
I was waiting for you, Terry.
Do it. You gotta jump in there. You just gotta go. All right. Motion's made and seconded. Any further debate? Let's take a vote. Trustee Andrews.
Aye.
Trustee Capel.
Aye.
Trustee Cervantes.
Aye.
Trustee Wilkerson.
Aye.
And an aye vote. All right, last item of new business. This is item 8F, beginning on page 99 of your board package. And this is the review and approval of a professional development training consultant. I've got a staff report in here, but I will let Nikki speak to this a little bit as well. Go ahead, Nikki.
All right, so just to quickly summarize what I had wrote in the staff report. Professional development was identified in our strategic planning process in 2019 for both staff and board members, actually. And last year, thankfully, with the help of a couple of the managers, we were able to put on 2 different professional development days and organize those ourselves, and really spent very little on them because we facilitated them and didn't bring in an outside consultant to administer those. This year, especially with some of the transitions we've had in turnover, Victor and I were speaking about a focus on organizational health in this year's professional development activities. He's worked with this consultant, her name is Jennifer Coyle, with North Star Consulting when he was with the city of Carlsbad, and highly recommended her work around organizational health as well as leadership development. So I had a phone call, actually a couple phone calls with her to talk about what her suggestions would be, and what she recommended was doing some leadership focused training. So 4 workshops with the management team. And then I have her booked actually, or on her calendar, to come and conduct our professional development day. We're gonna work on the curriculum with her as the management team. We have 2 workshops scheduled in August and September. To identify, the needs of the staff as a whole. There's also, and basically the way I had her write the proposal was to include any type of work that could potentially be in her scope. So, and that also included potentially working with individual board members on board development or leadership, as well as potentially working with us on the board retreat in January of this year. So it is a very big number at $26,500. That's not to say we're going to spend all of that, but just that that way we have the full scope in front of the board, and potentially some really awesome training for both the staff and managers and the trustees. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
So am I correct in, I was just doing the math again. Am I correct that the ask to the not to exceed 26.5 is her scope, and then basically our budget for all of those categories combined is 24.5. So there's like a $2,000 discrepancy between those two.
Correct.
Okay.
Is that, how do I want to say it? Is that the cost, is that, I guess, normal in terms of like, do you need I know that Victor has worked with her before and sounds like she comes highly recommended, but is there a need for like a second opinion, or kind of how we did with when the painting was going to be refinished, like where different people give their quotes as well? And if not, I'm just curious, I don't have any experience in this area, just that's a reasonable cost that they're quoting the company.
Yeah, based on work that I've done in planning previous development days, I think her costs are on par with what you probably find with most training consultants. I don't know, Katie, if you can speak to that too. I know you've done a lot of consulting work, but and that's where, for me, I like the idea of starting out just working with the management team and making sure that it is a good fit, and then potentially expanding the other work that she does for the district. That's not, so again, like if maybe it's not working out, we could potentially, look into something else. But again, being that Victor's worked with her and was extremely happy, not only with the work she did with their management team, but also she did one-on-one coaching with individual managers for the system, that I feel pretty confident that this looks like a good way to go.
And I would say, in terms of a positive note, that I'm really excited that that the district is taking something like that seriously in terms of like developing staff. And I'm going to keep her information and maybe slide it to our our agency leadership, because I feel like that's an area a lot of times where organizations are not willing to spend money because it doesn't have what's it called, like there's no tangible kind of result from it. But I really think it's really important. Yeah, but I was just curious, not having any experience, if that was a typical amount to pay for such a service.
Rushmore, go ahead.
Yeah, I concur with Camila. I really support this action. It was discussed when we did the budget, and I just think certainly coming out of COVID, everyone come back to work, it's really time to roll up our sleeves and get our staff trained as much as possible. Professional development is always a positive, and also I used to hire consultants regularly for these types of workshops, and this is on par, and in some ways it's actually on the reasonable side. So I feel comfortable with the numbers.
Yeah, go ahead, Terry, please.
Yeah, I'd like to kind of join in with what everybody's saying. A key line for me in Nikki's report on this is, with all the changes and transitions of the past year due to the pandemic, multiple staff vacancies and recruitments, embarking on this sort of thing makes a lot of sense. And you can see it all through our reports tonight. There's been vacancies, people leaving, people coming, etc. And there was an article in the LA Times this morning, I think, about how a lot of people are just quitting their job and because they got a better job elsewhere. It's that simple. So anything that we can do to shore up the outflow or prevent the outflow of employees has got my vote for sure. And I think something like this, starting as quickly as we can too, would really help us on that regard.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And as Nikki says, like on the other side, like my agency does a lot of consulting work, and yeah, this is totally reasonable. The pricing is reasonable, and I don't know if it's mentioned in the staff report or whatever, but basically it sounds like she's going to be super reasonable in terms of travel, and she's going to kind of work with us and make things as economical as possible. And I concur with what you're saying, Camila. Like, investing in people is just absolutely so important. And I think we've heard from the staff that that's a need and a desire and a place where they want to see more opportunity. And I think that if we can make that happen, and we definitely can, we've got the money in the budget, it makes total sense to do it. Any other discussion on this? Anything anybody else wants to talk about? Okay, then I think what I will do is I will ask for a motion to authorize the district director to contract with North Star Consulting for professional development services in an amount not to exceed $26,500.
So moved.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Me, second.
Second.
Nice, Camila. Yes.
Third and
Okay.
fourth.
All right, motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion on this? All right, let's vote on it. Trustee Andrews,
Aye.
Trustee Capel,
Aye.
Trustee Cervantes,
Aye.
Trustee Wilkerson,
Aye.
and a big aye vote from me. All right, guys, that is all of our new business. Fantastic. I want to take just 2 seconds here in our governance and just check in with everybody, see how we're feeling. So I know we had talked about coming back for an in-person meeting for our August Board of Trustees meeting, and switching out of our Zoom mode into our in-person mode. I just wanted to open up the floor and see how everybody's feeling about that. Obviously, it sounds like, indoor mask mandate still in place. That's totally fine. But how's everybody's comfort level? We still feeling like that sounds like a good option? Do we want to stay remote? What's the preference?
I was actually going to ask if there's any updates on the temporary order that's allowing the remote thing.
Not that it expires at the end of September, right, Diego?
That's correct. It's set to expire end of September. There hasn't been updates, but we have heard from CSDA and other people that are under Brown Act that there may be potential for bills to be passed to continue allowing remote, but that is not yet official or applicable.
Yeah.
I have a question about that. Just as a form of education. So why did there need to be a bill to allow for the Zoom or virtual meetings? Is it something in the Brown Act that says that they have to be held in person?
Basically,
Curious.
yeah,
Okay.
basically, right. So what the Brown Act said previously is that let's say you needed to teleconference in either by Zoom or by phone. So previously the way that worked was we were required to post publicly where that was going to be, and it had to be a public location. So like if I'm Zooming from my house, that needs to be publicly posted. That address needs to be available to the public. People have to be able to walk up and make their public comment. So that's like pretty invasive for all of us from our living rooms. Not ideal. So the executive order basically said, yeah, you don't have to do that. It also relaxed some of the rules around public comment and the ways in which those had to be handled. I will say that we have taken a much more transparent, we're trying to do as much as we can to make these meetings accessible to folks. So we're kind of doing more, Brown Act is the floor, not the ceiling. That's all great. But definitely the teleconferencing rules under the Brown Act normally are quite intense. And there's a lot about you have to be physically present in the confines of the district in order to vote. And there's a lot of stuff around where you physically are. That's normally part of the Brown Act. So the executive order just kind of relaxed a lot of that and said, it's fine, you can just do it on Zoom.
And then a follow-up question to that. Do either of you know, Diego, if they are, because of the pandemic, I don't know who wrote the Brown Act, someone named Brown, if they are planning to take this pandemic into consideration in terms of not having to have an order that expires in September, in the case of a global pandemic, this is allowed, moving forward.
Yes, that's exactly what the bill's for, to allow for it for special circumstances and whether or not people are able to participate virtually. For example, like Katie mentioned, the Brown Act currently says voting members need to be physically present, or if they're teleconferencing, having that invasive procedure to allow public comment to be done at their location as well. But given the technology resources that we have, that might be something that is allowed for future, but that's a bill that needs to happen for that amendment to take place.
Okay. Okay. In terms of, I'm okay with meeting in person, you know, as long as there's space for us all to distance. I figure we would be in that community room if we were meeting in person. I don't know where the meetings were held before, but I assume it was there. I mean, yeah, I'm also okay with continuing on Zoom.
Yeah, where's everybody else landing on this? It's tough to do this outside of public meetings, so sorry, but this is the only time we really can talk about it as a group.
I'm comfortable meeting. You know, I've got my shots, and I'm assuming all of you probably have. So, yeah, I'm ready to go.
Yeah, Terry.
I've got some personal things regarding that I would want to stay in this mode for another month or two. You know, so you're catching me at a time where it would be difficult for me to re-engage, you know, next month, but maybe the month after that. And I'd also be interested to hear or to see what happens on a wider basis with some of the, you know, the mask orders and so on that have been happening lately. Is that going to get worse or better? It's kind of hard to tell right now. So I would, I'd say not now, but soon.
And also with the variant, I just thought about that in terms of we might want to ride that out and wait and see how that is managed.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting because I've seen a couple of like I just saw a post on Nextdoor where someone was like, I had my shots and I still, you know, got it. And people are talking about that. So I think that, you know, with the relaxing of all of the you know, requirements, even though they say now, you know, wear the mask indoors, it might be prudent to wait a bit to see how things, you know, if the numbers go up or if they stay kind of stable. But, you know, either way, I feel like because it's a small number of us, but then if we do meet in person, then that means that everyone is invited to come though, right?
That's the deal, right? So it's not just the five of us, it means that public comments back on in the original way. It means that, you know, folks are wandering in, and that's the deal. Like there's no, unfortunately, the Brown Act doesn't envision like any kind of hybrid situation.
Right.
So yeah.
That's a good point. That kind of, I feel a little iffy about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was actually going to be my question, because I know at one point we had talked about if it was possible to do a hybrid, even because I'm sure there's some community members that even if we were meeting in person, there's some community members that probably would not yet be comfortable.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, certainly I will say, I mean, my preference is definitely to, as much as I would love to see all of you in person, for a lot of like family health reasons, my preference is to stay remote. Also, I will say like it helps me to be able to see your whole faces and kind of know how people are thinking, and that can be kind of tough if we're all masked up. So I would echo Terry's preference to stay remote for a little bit. Everybody kind of consensus. All right. So
yeah.
All right, let's stick with what we've been doing. It's been working. We've got our system. And so we'll plan on being, it sounds like we'll plan on sticking to our remote process for August and probably September. And we'll have an update. Yeah, I think we'll know more at that point about whether the executive order is going to expire or that assembly bill is going to pass or like kind of what we're dealing with. So, okay. All right.
It's really good that we're bringing it up now, Katie.
Yeah.
And as we were talking about this, it's hard to believe that I don't think Camila and Rushmore have ever been in a meeting the way that we used to have them around the table with us. It's amazing to think it's been going on that long.
Yeah,
Yeah.
crazy. We'll get there. We'll get there. All right, guys. No correspondence this month. Any future agenda items or other announcements? Anything really good of the order? Okay. Hearing nothing, then I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, motion's made and seconded. Any objection? Hearing none, we are adjourned at 8. No, wait. Hang on, sorry. I'm time zone math. I'm failing it. 7, thank you. I was trying to do it in my head. 7:11 p.m. Thanks so much, everybody. Really appreciate it.
Everyone, stay safe.
It is-
Bye, everyone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll
Be
see you
well.
next time.
Take care.